So I think Boku no Hero Academia is becoming my favorite show to review weekly because once again we got another fantastic episode and we see just how much Izuku character is developing because we see that by the end, like when he used his power, he was not he was not incapacitated like how he was last week, and we see now that this episode its main focus was like all about control because we all know that Izuku he definitely lacks that, but right now he is definitely on a path to gain it, and so we see that the episode itself it started off from last week where we have the judges talking about the test that went on, and we learn now how Katsuki he actually scored first with like no rescue points, but mainly villain points because he was going around and not only was he like taking out those robots, but he was also baiting them with his power, and that right there was a very smart strategy. And of course, the judges also talked about Izuku because he also scored, kind of high because he was top 10 with no, villain points, but he had the highest rescue points, and so that right there is also a very huge, accomplishment because these two they go to the same school, and even though these two are definitely the complete opposites, they definitely have everyone talking about them. But once Izuku, had read that letter, about his acceptance, he had ran to the beach to meet All Might, and we see now that like he was so excited, he actually called out to him, and then we have like this couple who like looking around for All Might, and obviously there's no way they could find out that skinny looking sick guy was him. They could not find that out, and so obviously he had to like play it off talking about he made a mistake. But going on now, we see that they were talking, and we learn now that the Izuku he can either use right now he has no control of his quirk. So right now he either goes full 100% when he uses it, or he doesn't and remain at zero. And so right now, that right there is a very deadly double-edged sword because I'm pretty sure that useful hero, what's her name, something girl, that old looking nurse, there is no way, she'll be around because she is a veteran hero because she is a school nurse, but at the same time, she could not go to Izuku and heal him every time he uses quirk. And so right now, he definitely, has to like gain some kind of control of it. But regardless, where we have, All Might telling him how it'll come to him, and then we even see him picking up like these gas containers and crushing it because he went into his hero mode, and then once again we have this couple, seeing him, and they were like, when did he get there? Because they were like definitely confused, but then we have him and Izuku, they were like running off because obviously now they were like going to do more training, I believe, because obviously it's because it's like All Might has said, the stronger the vessel becomes, the more power it can use. So obviously Izuku definitely had to do the training so that way he can gain control over this like extremely powerful quirk. But now, like going to a first day of school, we have his mother, asking him all these questions because she wanted to make sure that he did everything. And we see now that at first she was like kind of getting on his nerve, but then when she told him that like he was cool, that right there, really made her happy. But eventually now we see him getting to school, and he was hoping how he wouldn't have Katsuki and Tenya because we do learn that right there is what the boy with the glasses name is. He was hoping how he would not be in the same class with them because obviously those two are right now his biggest hassles. And we see that when he opened that door, and by the way, those doors at the school are like freaking massive, but then again, that school is like pretty freaking huge as well. But regardless, when he does open that door, and we see now that Tenya and Katsuki, they were like even arguing, that right there was like his worst dream, like come true. But then we get the flashback of when both Izuku and Katsuki, they were leaving their normal school behind because of course they were like transferring to the UA, and we see now that that their teacher he was like praising, he was praising Izuku because that right there was like the major shocker here, and so when he did that, that right there made Katsuki, very angry because we see now how after they had left beating with their teacher, we see Katsuki, kind of like bullying him, saying, like what kind of dirty trick did you pull to get in? Because apparently he had no idea what Izuku did, and that right there I find surprising because how in the world did he not hear about that? But regardless, now Izuku actually he didn't back down, and we see him now standing his ground for once, and that right there I was applauding because it's about time this happened. But we see now that when Tenya, had spotted him, Kazuki, he was like, how dare he defy me? Because, he was like telling him to go somewhere else, but obviously that right there wouldn't happen. But then we see that while Tenya was talking to Izuku, we have Ochako. She's also in that class, and that right there is like freaking great. And we see now that while they were talking, Izuku's mind was like wandering all over the place because once again he was talking, to this girl. And we see that while they were talking, we have some guy appear and like the sleeping bag, and then we see our characters, freaking out. But we learn now how this guy is it's their homeroom teacher, Aizawa. And so now we see that their teacher, apparently, this guy, to me, he seems very depressing because he seems very dark. And we even learn now how he was an underground hero or a vigilante. And so apparently All Might, he was like going over the files, and eventually he had found their homeroom teacher, and that right there definitely, raised a flag for him because he was kind of worried, especially for Izuku. But we see now that after they got dressed, apparently they were like going to do some kind of an assessment test, but this time they could like use their quirks. And so first was Katsuki. And so apparently, they were doing this ball tossing, and we see now that when he first did it, when their teacher asked him, what was like his record, without using his quirk, I believe he said it was like 67 meters, something like that. But when he did use his quirk, that right there, had went up by leaps and bounds because it was like in the 700 range. And so now these students were like getting very excited because they could do this, with their quirks, and they definitely, wasn't taking it seriously because they thought this right here would be, all fun and games. But Aizawa, he had to like bring them down to earth and give them a harsh dose of reality because he was saying that. That out of these 8 tests, whoever get the lowest, they'll be deemed with like no potential, and they'll be expelled. And so obviously now that right there make everyone get a little serious. And we see now that during this test we learn more about our character powers. Where we have them doing this 50-meter dash, where we have Tenya's quirk being called Engine, and we see now how he was obviously the fastest, and we see him now going against like this frog girl, but for some reason we did not learn the name of her quirk. But hopefully, to me personally, I'm hoping her quirk name might be Frogger, because that right there would be one hell of a reference. But then we have Ochako, whose quirk name is Zero Gravity. We all know about that one. And then we have this one boy named Yuga, who's definitely pretty flashy, but apparently his quirk is named Naval Laser, where he can shoot a laser out of a belly button. So that right there explains the very real belt that we saw around his waist, or around his stomach, I just say, last week. But apparently he has a limit where if he does it for like more than 1 second, I believe, he actually gets a stomach ache. Where we have Ochako as well. She also has a limit as to how much she can like lift or make, weightless. And apparently if she does too much, she also gets sick and nauseous. And so we all know about Kazuki's quirk, because his is explosion. And we see him now use it in very creative ways, because we saw that during the dash, he was like using it to like make himself go faster, but at the same time, he was also using both hands, and that right there had kind of like messed him up slightly, but at the same time he was still pretty fast. And so now going to their next one where we have them, doing these jumps. Obviously, these other characters, they were like able to excel, but then we have Izuku, who was like struggling throughout the episode because he could not use his quirk because once he uses it once, his body is like pretty much destroyed. And so we see now that when it was getting time for like the ball tossing once again, so that way our other characters can do it. We have Ochako, who pretty much did the impossible because when she made that ball, like weightless, that right there kind of made it go so far. She actually got infinity, and that right there is a very huge accomplishment. And so we see now that when it was Izuku's turn, he was like thinking, exactly, what he should do, because it was like now or never, because we have Tenga saying that at this rank, he will definitely, rank the lowest, and that he'll be at risk to get kicked out. And we even see now that, in another flashback, we have All Might asking him, how did it feel, like when you use these powers, because he was thinking of ways so that right there might help him, like learn to control this quirk, because apparently the hint or the key to actually controlling it, that right there is feelings. And so Izuku was saying how it felt like an egg being in a microwave, and that right there, like was kind of weird. But apparently, we all know the result of when that egg actually blows up in that microwave. That right there is what we saw, last week. And so we see that when Izuku was like going to throw it, giving it his all, we see how their teacher, Aizawa, whose hero name is called Eraserhead, or the Eraser Hero, he actually had the power to erase his quirk, and that right there just sounds so freaking broken. But at the same time, where we have these characters kind of introducing him, I will say that I did like that they gave him like the Batman setting, where we see that like on this dark night, all you see is him like on this building corner rooftop. To me, that right there was like kind of hilarious, but at the same time, that right there is why I call him a vigilante instead of an underground hero, because of course vigilante sounds way more appropriate, and not only that, it also sounds, a lot cooler. But I do wonder, just how long can he erase somebody's quirk? Like, because if that right there can be forever, then that right there is insanely broken. But we see now how he actually gave his quirk back after lecturing him, because he was saying how, he was saying how letting in Izuku, it was a mistake, because this guy, he definitely has no potential, because at the same time he'll become nothing more than a handicap for the other heroes, because every time he would use his quirk, others would like have to save him, and that right there would not be a good thing. So of course he was like trying to sabotage him, but at the same time he also gave him that push he needed, because we see that All Might, he had came to watch what was going down, and we see that when Izuku had finally realized what he had to do, because he was saying how he must work harder than anyone else. And we see now that when he threw that ball, he actually transferred his quirk, like all for one, and like into his fingertip, because that right there was the last place that the ball came in contact with. And all you see is this ball like breaking the wind as it went flying, and eventually now when it came down, he actually was like he actually was like able to beat like 700 meters, and so that right there was like very impressive. But we see now how his finger was like definitely broken, and so now like we see him standing proudly, telling his teacher how he didn't go down, and so that way he would not burn to the others. So that right there, I will definitely applaud him for it, because that right there was some pretty good character development for him. But overall, this episode, it was amazing. I'm definitely liking the way I definitely like the way Izuku character is definitely evolving and becoming, because to me he would make one hell of a hero. and I do wonder what the other events will be, or unless that right there will wrap up. But also, one more thing, that guy who I have called creepy with like those webbed arms, he's actually in his class, and we do see now how this guy is like actually pretty freaking strong as well, because there was this little grip test, and this guy, I believe I believe that he was like able to do like 540, and that right there was like freaking insane with those arms. And then we have some of the hero who apparently has like the balls of hair, but apparently he can like move himself really fast between them. So these heroes in this series are like really unique, but at the same time they are definitely kind of lame, like Yuga with his naval laser. Like, this guy to me seems like a joke, and to be honest, I'm definitely shocked that this guy is like even a hero. But at the same time, Aizawa, or Eraserhead, he was saying how these heroes have like room to grow, so maybe I shouldn't back them just yet. So I definitely will wait and see just what these quirks can evolve and become to when you guys get older and mature even more. But as always, let me know what you guys thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe for this amazing episode. And as always, you guys take it easy, and I will see you all next time. So there was this very crucial moment in the episode that I forgot to bring up in my review, and so of course I had to go back, because this right here, there is no way I could not bring this up, and that right there is about All Might, because we learn now that when Izuku starts to master this quirk and gain control over it, All Might, he will get weaker and eventually he will disappear. So even though this quirk, even though it's so freaking powerful, at the same time when you transfer it, that right there pretty much starts your own death clock. And so now I gotta wonder, is All Might still I stood around the manga, because obviously that right there is way far ahead compared to where we are in the anime now. So now I'm kind of worried, because All Might, I definitely like him. This is like one of very unique hero, and if this guy is gone, or definitely will be gone in future of the series, then that right there to me is like kind of depressing. But at the same time, because at the same time where we have Izuku, when he's all grown up, and because I do wonder just how long can someone actually hold in this quirk, because I would hate to see Izuku have a very young life, where we have this guy being a very successful hero, but at the same time when the guy's like in his 20s or early 30s, he has to look for a successor, because maybe his body can't handle the quirk anymore or something, because we all know how All Might, he was like definitely hurt after a fight that he went through years ago, and so maybe that right there was like playing maybe that right there was like playing a role as to why he was like looking for someone in the first place to like take over that quirk for him. So I do hope that All Might will explain this process. I do hope he explained the process before he unfortunately does disappear. But that right there is what I want to touch up, because there is no way we can avoid that now.